Welcome into Steelers Talk. I'm your host, Jack Sperry. I'm recording this about 24 hours before the Steelers take on the Buffalo Bills here in Week 13. We got some last-minute news updates for you guys here on Steelers Talk. So if you guys want daily and informative Steelers content here on the channel for free, make sure you click that subscribe button. Also tomorrow, about an hour before kickoff, Ponzi and I will be going live on this channel for our Steelers Talk watch party. Going to be getting on a flight here home within the next couple of hours, and we'll be back in studio tomorrow. So make sure you guys click that subscribe button if you haven't already. Big game tomorrow. Great opportunity for the Pittsburgh Steelers to, extend their lead here in the AFC North divisional race. So hopefully they can pull out a win, and I can't wait to experience that game with you guys tomorrow. So make sure you guys click that subscribe button. Now let's get into the news updates of the day here, starting with the Steelers injury report, which was released yesterday. Good news for the most part throughout that injury report. Aaron Rodgers, DK Metcalf, Alex Highsmith, Joey Porter Jr., Ben Skowronek, all the guys that we were kind of worried about this week that were kind of in limbo. Are they going to play? Are they not going to play? All of them will be playing tomorrow afternoon. So obviously a lot of those players are really important to the winning effort potentially tomorrow. Aaron Rodgers, we saw what Mason Rudolph looked like last week. Couldn't complete a pass more than 10 air yards down the field. So getting at Rodgers back with his arm talent, with his quick feet in the pocket, with his quick release, with his football IQ, certainly, Rodgers is the better quarterback between him and Mason Rudolph. So I think he does give the Steelers a better shot to win. He was able to practice in full these last 2 days on Thursday and Friday. Mike Tomlin, the head coach, even said he was able to take some snaps from under center. Now, just how much under center is the game plan going to look like tomorrow against the Bills? Who knows? I think what I'll say is that I would like to see a lot of under center because the Bills have really struggled against the under center run game this year. So if Rodgers is comfortable and he can kind of handle that workload under center tomorrow, I'd love to see him do that. But obviously with that wrist, he's wearing a cast on it right now. It's just kind of it might be a little bit uncomfortable or painful for him to do that. So it'll be interesting to see how much shotgun versus how much under center work we'll see from the Steelers offense tomorrow. But obviously having DK Metcalf, your number one receiver, available to you is very important. Alex Highsmith getting back in the lineup certainly helps things out. Highsmith is a really good player. And then Joey Porter Jr., your number one corner, who's really played like a true number one corner over the last month or so. Not having him out there would have been a bummer, and him being able to play should help things out for the Pittsburgh Steelers on defense. And then Skowronek is obviously a big-time blocker. We saw him quite a bit last week against Chicago. I think we're going to see him quite a bit again this week with how poorly the Buffalo Bills defend the run. And I think that has got to be a big part of the offensive game plan for the Pittsburgh Steelers here in this ball game. But the only players that are out this week are the guys that we already knew were going to be out this week, and that's Broderick Jones and Derrick Harmon. Now, Harmon might be able to return next week. He's dealing with a knee injury, a different knee injury than the one that he suffered in the preseason. But then Broderick Jones is actually going to be out for at least the next month. He was placed on IR today, which means Andrews Pete, at least for the time being, will be the starting left tackle for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now, if Pete doesn't play well, they still have Calvin Anderson, who this team actually signed to a pretty decent contract to be this team's swing tackle this offseason. But I think the reason why they're playing Pete instead of Anderson, at least this week, is because the run game should play a very big factor in the Steelers' offensive game plan, and Pete is bigger. He's a better run blocker. So I think that is probably the main reason why he's getting the nod this week over Calvin Anderson. But with that extra roster spot that the Steelers have now with Broderick Jones heading to IR, the Steelers have elevated Asante Samuel Jr. off of the practice squad. So I've been kind of worried about this, guys, because Asante's kind of just been hanging out there on the practice squad. And the Steelers have, obviously Joey Porter Jr., James Pierre's been playing pretty good football ever since over the last month or so. And then Brandon Echols has been their slot corner. So, there's not really a whole lot of wiggle room there in the starting lineup, especially because you still have Darius Slay as the first line of defense in that cornerback room. But them elevating Asante Samuel Jr. this week tells me that they do have some sort of plan for Asante, and now no team can just, lure him away, like the Eagles, for example, if they want to bring in Asante, and Asante doesn't have a choice in the matter anymore. He is a Pittsburgh Steeler. He's on the active roster. Now, my question is, how much will Asante play, if at all, in the starting lineup tomorrow? You got Joey Porter Jr., James Pierre, and Brandon Echols has been your starting cornerback trio over the last month, and honestly, it's worked out pretty well. And Asante is still pretty darn new, so I would expect to see Asante on special teams units tomorrow. Maybe he gets in a little bit, but honestly, and some people have been speculating he might play in the slot. I'm not sure if I see any of those options happening. If he does play tomorrow on defense, I would guess it's going to be at the number 2 starting outside cornerback spot. But honestly, I think James Pierre has played well enough where I'm not sure if Asante is going to be getting the starting nod over Pierre. So just keep your eye on that. See if Asante gets any actual playing time tomorrow. I know he's been working really, really hard to get into full, in-season game shape and learning the defense. And apparently it's gotten to the point here where at least the Steelers feel comfortable enough giving him a helmet on game day. So that's really exciting to see somebody that the Steelers brought in here, big name player, big time acquisition in the middle of the season, finally getting a helmet tomorrow. So it's probably going to be in a backup capacity. I wouldn't expect to see Asante Samuel Jr. on the field much in a defensive capacity tomorrow. But it's just nice that he's getting in the mix here. And if James Pierre starts not playing very well, if Darius Slay gets injured again, if Brandon Echols gets injured, God forbid, if any of those things happen, you do have a guy in Asante Samuel Jr. here who's a former starting player in the National Football League, who's been with the team now for a few weeks, that can come in if need be. So that's really good news. But then on to the Buffalo Bills injury report here, where they're going to be without both of their starting offensive tackles tomorrow. Both Dion, Dawkins, big time left tackle for them, has been a really good player for them for a long time. And then Spencer Brown, their starting right tackle. Both of them are out for tomorrow's game, which obviously should give the Steelers an advantage along the defensive trenches. You got TJ Watt, you got Alex Highsmith, who's coming back from that injury this week. You have Nick Herbig. There's no excuse for that pass rush tomorrow to not absolutely eat, especially because last week Josh Allen, the Bills quarterback, got sacked 8 times versus a very good Houston Texans pass rush. Steelers have also a very good pass rush. So as long as the Steelers secondary and the Steelers coaching staff can do a good enough job getting Josh Allen to hold the ball for a little bit longer and not allow Josh to get the ball out of his hands very quickly like Caleb Williams was able to last week, then I think that this should be a very good defensive performance from the Pittsburgh Steelers tomorrow afternoon. We've seen in their last 2 home games against the Colts and against the Bengals, we've seen excellent defensive performances from the Pittsburgh Steelers. And I have a feeling we're going to have a very similar type of game tomorrow from this Steelers defense. So obviously you can't count your chickens before they hatch. You have to go out there and you have to execute. But I like this matchup for the Pittsburgh Steelers defense, even with a guy as good as Josh Allen, an MVP caliber quarterback going up against you. Obviously that's the type of X factor that can, put the game on, his shoulders for the Buffalo Bills and get a win on the road against the Steelers tomorrow. But, with the way that this Steelers team is constructed, I kind of like their matchup versus this Buffalo Bills offense, which has been struggling as of late, probably over the last 3 games or so. So I really do think that the Pittsburgh Steelers tomorrow, guys, have a chance to, bounce back. We've seen this team, have an embarrassing loss and then come back and have a really good game. We've seen that kind of flip-flop pretty consistently over the last month. They lose to the Bengals and Packers on primetime football. Then they come out and beat the number 1 seed in the Indianapolis Colts. Then they lose to the Chargers on the road. Then they completely dominate the Cincinnati Bengals. Then last week, you have your backup quarterback in. There's some very bad defensive schematic mistakes by the Steelers coaching staff on the defensive side of the ball. You give up 31 points to Caleb Williams and the Bears. And then, you have 2 opportunities for your offense to drive down the field and at least tie, if not win the football game, and they can't execute because Mason Rudolph and the passing offense just couldn't throw the ball vertically down the field, and that ended up killing the football team last week. But I've been seeing a lot of overreactions on Steelers Twitter this week. There's a lot of people catastrophizing and saying, oh, this season's over. This team's absolutely terrible. All this different stuff. We can't beat anybody. Well, that's just, not the case in my opinion. We've beaten the New England Patriots, the current #1 seed in the AFC, on the road, all right? They might be one of the tougher teams that the Steelers would have to play in the AFC playoff picture. They've beaten, and really, they kind of dominated the Indianapolis Colts. They were up 3 scores midway through the fourth quarter against the Indianapolis Colts, a current division winner in the AFC. All right, we've seen this team in the Pittsburgh Steelers play good football on both sides of the football this year in spurts, right? They really haven't been able to put it all together, and that's going to be on the coaching staff, and that's going to be on the players to really tighten things up on both sides of the ball, offense and defense, because we've seen what this team is capable of. We've seen what Aaron Rodgers is capable of. We've seen what the run game is capable of. We've seen what DK Metcalf is capable of. We've seen what this defense, and especially this pass rush, is capable of. They can turn the football over. This team is a very, good football team, but they're not a great football team yet. And I'm hoping here over the next month and a half here, they can start to try and make that final transition into a great football team, kind of the opposite from what we saw from this team last year, where they were a really good football team, arguably great football team for that first half of the season. They get that 10-3 start. They beat the Ravens. They beat the Commanders. They beat some really good football teams in that stretch. And then after that 10-3 start, obviously you lose the rest of the games that you play for the rest of the season, and you go from, a pretty darn good football team to a bad football team down the stretch. And, hopefully it's kind of the reverse of that this season for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Still think they got everything left in front of them, guys. I think that tomorrow is a very winnable ball game at home versus a kind of struggling Bills team at this point. Then you got the Ravens, and we saw what the Ravens looked like against the Bengals defense, just a couple nights ago on Thanksgiving. They only scored, 14 points against the Bengals defense. They had 5 turnovers against that defense. Just imagine what it's going to look like when they play Pittsburgh, a team that Lamar Jackson has traditionally struggled against, right? I think that the Steelers can very realistically at least win one game against Baltimore. It might even be next week. And if you can win these next 2 games, guys, if you can beat the Bills and Ravens, and you're sitting there, with a really good 8-5 record, especially with the current state of the AFC North, if you can win these next 2 games, you all but have the division locked up. And, really the only way that you lose the division at that point is you completely crap the bed. So I still think everything is in front of this Pittsburgh Steelers team. I think they've got the talent to get it done. I think that, they still have the opportunity to do something that no Steelers team over the last pretty much 8 years has done, which is win a playoff game. I still think that this team is the best equipped for playoff success. Probably since the 2017 season. It's just about putting everything and putting all the puzzle pieces together at the right time. And I think that there's a reasonable expectation that they could potentially do that. So really excited to break down this game with you guys tomorrow. Again, Ponzi and I will be live here on Steelers Talk tomorrow, starting at 3:30 p.m. Eastern Time, an hour before the kickoff. Got some pregame coverage for you guys, followed by live play-by-play and analysis, and then extensive post-game coverage as well. We're going to have a really cool raffle item for you guys tomorrow that you're not going to want to miss as well. It's going to be a big game. Can't wait to share with you guys. Make sure you click that subscribe button if you haven't already. Until tomorrow, guys, here we go, Steelers.